Let's talk about ginger. Ginger is such a cool spice because it's medicinal in almost any preparation. In fact, if it's there and present in the food, then it's pretty much impossible to destroy and make it not medicinal. So I love that, whether it's like ginger candies, or this morning I made gingerbread pancakes for the family. And that I used about a quarter cup of fresh grated ginger and a whole bunch of dried ginger and molasses and made these gingerbread pancakes. So you can use ginger in all different kinds of ways. You're probably familiar with ginger in both its fresh form and its dried form. And I think of these as two different spices almost entirely. The dried form is spicy and acrid and pungent and pretty intense. The fresh form is a lot more juicy and warming and aromatic than it is hot and acrid. So I use them actually quite differently. I wouldn't substitute one for the other in most situations. So it's nice to have a little bit of ginger on hand if it's something you can get. So how do we use ginger? Again, you can use it any way you want. You can put it in all sorts of different kinds of foods. You can even sprinkle a little bit on top. But you're going to find it's a strong spice, and it's actually spicier than you might realize. If you just put a lot of the powder, it can be pretty darn heating for a lot of people. So a little goes a long way. It's also super affordable, which is great. And it pairs really well with a little bit of sweet or tart, like lemon and honey and so on. But, endless recipes out there for ginger that you can find. And I really love ginger along with like cinnamon and cloves and things like that. I'm going to share one of my favorite recipes for using ginger in that way when we go into the kitchen a little later. So there's some cool research around ginger and also how we use ginger. Ginger is great as an overall warming tonic for the body. It's very heating. It helps with circulation. It also is really helpful in all different types of inflammation, especially inflammation where there's not a lot of heat. So osteoarthritis is a great example of inflammation where there tends to not be as much heat. There's a lot of stagnancy and so on. So I was just reading a paper about a knee osteoarthritis. There was 120 patients with knee osteoarthritis, and they took 500 milligrams a day, which is a super small amount of ginger. And when you're looking at dried ginger, 500 milligrams is like this much ginger. They took 500 milligrams a day of ginger, and they had significant decrease in a number of inflammatory factors as compared to the placebo. So pretty neat stuff with just taking a very simple, very affordable amount of ginger. I bet you could get that much ginger for $2 a month to be able to take a dose like that. And of course, osteoarthritis is very prevalent. So different types of inflammation can respond really well to something like ginger. I also really like to think about it as immune support, helpful in preventing colds and flus and so on. It's a great thing on a cold winter time when you're gathering with people to have a lot of ginger, like fresh ginger tea boiling on the stove, a little bit of lemons and honey on the side, that people can help support themselves and their respiratory and immune systems by drinking that tea. It's also great for digestion, especially if you tend to get cold, you have kind of cold digestion and you want to warm it up. So bitters are great, but ginger is kind of more of an aromatic in that way. So it can be wonderful if you experience a lot of nausea and stagnancy and so on. So ginger and nausea often go together really well. So that can be something that you can try. Some other cool things about ginger. The anti-inflammatory effects in ginger are pretty profound. And another cool paper looked at some weight training individuals. So they were doing their weight training. And a lot of times when you do weight training, that's intense exercise and you can actually cause a little bit of muscle damage. And that's kind of typical soreness. That's why you have soreness after you do this, and your body heals from that and it goes on. But actually the people taking ginger had lower blood markers lower blood inflammatory markers and less post-exercise muscle pain as well. So really helpful for people who are doing a lot of exercise and a lot of movement, or who tend to get sore from doing different kinds of things. Another really cool one was a double-blind, placebo-controlled randomized trial looking at middle-aged women and the cognitive effects of ginger. And so they actually just gave them pretty small amounts, about what I was showing you, or a little bit more than that, or a placebo. And they found that they had significant improvement over the placebo group in both attention and cognitive processing. So this is a really common thing you hear from people. They're like, oh, I feel spacey. I feel like I need to focus more. Something as simple as ginger is a wonderful recommendation because it's safe, it's affordable, it's accessible, and of course, it's also super delicious.